Hello there, I'm Joshua Johnson. It's good to be with you on this Wednesday, April 13th. And tonight, we're talking about two of Russia's growing problems in this war. For one thing, more evidence points to Russia committing war crimes, including in a new report. For another, it may convince two European countries to give up their neutrality and join NATO. We'll explain. Tomorrow, the man suspected in a subway shooting in Brooklyn makes his first appearance in court. We are live with the latest, including how police caught him. Also, the CDC says many travelers across the U.S. will need to keep wearing masks for a little longer. We will explain what's behind that decision. And you'll see how one program is helping families stay close to their kids as they face some very difficult times. The war in Ukraine is going on its second month. With all the horror and heartbreak of any war, some of what we've seen is prompting war crime investigations. Today, one investigation found that Russia has committed human rights abuses in Ukraine. That is according to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE. It says it has documented many of Russia's attacks against civilians, and those include the bombing of the Mariupol Maternity and Children's Hospital back on March 9th. Russia has vehemently denied responsibility for that attack. The U.S. ambassador to the OSCE says the organization's report includes evidence of, quote, direct targeting of civilians, attacks on medical facilities, rape, executions, looting, and forced deportations of civilians to Russia, unquote. Yesterday, President Biden accused Russia of genocide. This appears to be the first time the White House has publicly, out loud, used that word, genocide, to describe what is happening. And that word choice drew words of praise from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He tweeted, quote, true words of a true leader, calling things by their names is essential to stand up to evil, unquote. President Zelensky is pleading for world leaders to essentially put their money where their mouths are and, in his words, arm Ukraine now.
Ukraine needs weapon supplies. We need heavy artillery, armed vehicles, air defense systems, and combat aircraft. Anything to repel Russian forces and stop their war crimes. Freedom must be armed better than tyranny. Arm Ukraine now to defend freedom.
Today, Mr. Biden called Mr. Zelensky to say that the U.S. would do just that. The administration offered another $800 million worth of weapons, ammunition, and other security assistance to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian forces continue to attack the southern port city of Mariupol. Its mayor says that at least 100,000 people need to evacuate. NBC's Ali Arouzi starts us off tonight in Lviv in western Ukraine. And Ali, is this what President Zelensky had in mind in terms of arming Ukraine now, this $800 million package that President Biden announced today?
Hi, Joshua. Well, it's part of what he wanted. Look, it's going to certainly help the Ukrainian troops on the ground here. It's going to help them defend themselves. But what he really wants is air power. He's been saying that from the very beginning of this war, that they need fighter jets to stop the Russians attacking them. And I spoke to the mayor of Kramatorsk today, the mayor of that railway station that got bombed very badly, where 57 people got killed. And he said, look, we can fight the Russians on the ground. Our troops are really capable of that, but we're getting pounded on the air by these guys, and we need to be able to shoot down the Russian aircrafts, and we need our own aircrafts to be able to fight back. He said if they had, proper aircrafts, proper air defense systems, and if they were in place at the time the Kramatorsk railway station got hit, they possibly could have defended that, but they weren't able to. So that's the really big thing. He goes, I understand that they can't close the skies, but we we need those airplanes, and they still haven't gotten them. They want those, MiGs that are in Poland, that the Ukrainian pilots know how to use, and the West is still reluctant to give it to them. But nonetheless, all this help they're getting is going to help. They're going to get helicopters, and that's part of what they wanted. So we'll see if this war becomes a war of attrition. They may get those planes at some point, but they haven't gotten them yet.
I did want to ask you about our sense of how the Ukrainians are doing in terms of their fight against the Russians. I want to add something that just crossed about a minute or so ago. Ukraine says that it has damaged a Russian warship in the Black Sea, the Moskva, which was stationed in the Black Sea. If you've heard us talking about the city of Odessa, that is a port city on the Black Sea. Mariupol is east of that in a different sea, the Sea of Azov. In a Telegram post, the governor of the Odessa region, Maxim Marchenko, said that it was confirmed that the Russian missile cruiser was hit. Russian state media has confirmed that the ship caught fire after being damaged and the crew was evacuated, but the Russian media says the fire was caused by ammunition aboard the ship that detonated. That does not mean that the ammunition did not detonate because the ship was shot, but there are two different accounts of what happened there. So, Ali, with that said, and I know I'm probably reading that to you for the very first time, but with that said, what is our sense of how this is going on the ground? It seems like, to hear the Ukrainians tell it, they're still able to score some key victories that are keeping them very, at least, viable in this fight so far.
Well, that's a very good point you make. And, when Boris Johnson was here just a few days ago, he said he was going to supply the Ukrainians with anti-ship systems. And that's what they need, because in the Sea of Azov, down by the port of Mariupol, by Odessa, is a strategic location for the Russians. They've basically choked off the Ukrainians from the Black Sea, which is a very economical, important place for the Ukrainians. They ship out most of their goods from there. And that's a really important battle for them. So if they can stop Russian ships surrounding them in the Sea of Azov, in the Black Sea, that's key for this battle. And we've seen it happen before. A couple of weeks ago, the Ukrainians hit a Russian landing ship in that area, and that was a big score for the Ukrainians. So they want more of that kind of equipment to help them fight the Russians from entering their shores from the Black Sea.
If we could put that map back up just for 1 second, I just want to illustrate what we were talking about in terms of where all of this is. I am learning the geography of this region along with many of you, but if you see on the map where it says Crimea, that large body of water, that's the Black Sea. Odessa sits along the Black Sea. Now, if you look where it says Mariupol, further to the right, that smaller sea, that's the Sea of Azov. That's a different body of water, but still kind of connected through tributaries to the Black Sea. So that's geographically where we're talking about there. Now you can see Odessa marked on the map next to Kherson. And one of the concerns is that Russian warships would be coming up through the Black Sea, up through the Sea of Azov, and creating a southern front of this war, along with the eastern front, all that territory in red where Russian forces are coming in to storm their way further west into Kyiv. One more thing, Ali, before we have to keep moving. With this OSCE report about human rights abuses and their report that says that there is evidence of war crimes on the ground, where does that go from here?
Well, the ICC was also here today, a different organization, and they called Ukraine, the entire Ukraine, a crime scene because of what's been happening here. The OCC, the report was really damning. I mean, it said it was a catalog of human rights abuses that have been perpetrated by the Russians. They talked about, gang rape of women, executions, deportations, all violations of human rights codes here, and that's going to put much more pressure on the Russians, and that's something Zelensky has been hitting home every day. He's saying that not just Putin has to be held accountable for what's happened here, but the commanders on the ground, the soldiers that perpetrated these crimes, that raped women in front of their children. There's a very specific point in that report saying that a drunken Russian soldier raped a woman in front of her small child and then killed the woman's husband. This is unacceptable to the world community. And more of these accounts that come out, the more pressure there's going to be on Russia. And I think the more the West is going to help Ukraine, because they just can't sit by and watch these abuses taking place. Thank you, Ali. Much appreciated. It's NBC's Ali Arouzi starting us off tonight
from Lviv. Before we keep going, I just want to underscore, by the way, the report we have about this warship. Please bear in mind that we're getting this from Ukrainian government forces and Russian official state media. NBC News can't independently verify this. That's why I'm trying to pass on both pieces of this, that Ukraine says that it has attacked a Russian warship in the Black Sea. The Russian media says that there was ammunition that caught fire. But one detail from a Ukrainian presidential advisor stands out. You may remember that this was a warship that, according to him, sailed up and asked Ukrainian soldiers to surrender at the start of the conflict. And a video went viral of those Ukrainian troops telling the Marines aboard that ship to go blank themselves. That's the ship that the Ukrainians now say they attacked and have crippled in the Black Sea. We will keep an eye on that and let you know if we learn anything more. Lots of you have sent in lots and lots of questions about this war. And one question in particular comes up really often. How can we help? One way that some cities in the U.S. are helping out is by supporting their sister cities. NBC's Maura Barrett explains what sister cities are and how they're lending a hand.
A world apart, U.S. communities are stepping up to help their counterparts abroad in Ukraine.
The ultimate goal is to get the people what they need in a timely manner.
Americans working to aid cities in strife with fundraisers and donation drives. But those who are sister cities are more than just symbolic.
When I hear the pleas of the mayor of Kyiv saying we need help, we are protecting our people, our city, it's what's driven me to the point where let's get moving on a sister city relationship now so we can help and do all we can.
Councilman Joe Buscaino leads the proposal to add Los Angeles to the list of already 22 sister city relationships between the U.S. and Ukraine. The City of Angels looking to make a connection with Kyiv, while places like Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore already support Kyiv, Donetsk, and Odessa.
What will Los Angeles be able to contribute to Kyiv?
Some of the old fire engines and police cars, sanitation trucks that are no longer in use here in Los Angeles.
LA is no stranger to the sister city relationship. In 2011, it donated fire trucks to Beirut, Lebanon, and it led fire training in Lusaka, Zambia in 2019. Now, they're planning to send bulletproof vests, helmets, and medical supplies. George Wahini is Ukrainian American.
How does it feel to be watching, to see everything that's going on in Ukraine right now?
It's very hard to see what's going on right now in Ukraine. I am basically seeing this history that I learned about crumbling by the day. And that's not only happening on, a physical level where buildings are being destroyed, literally history is going up in smoke. My friends, their families, their kids are also being destroyed. And each kid that is killed is a little bit of the Ukrainian heritage that could have gotten carried forth, for the next 80 years, being snuffed out.
He's leading the steering committee for LA to make connections on the U.S. side. He's just signed on Ruslana, a Ukrainian pop star, to help spread the word.
The Los Angeles community has really come forward to help us in any way that they can. It makes Ukrainians feel like somebody cares. And there's a lot of politics involved in how the Western world can help.
But while the U.S. is trying to grow relationships with Ukraine, cities with connections to Russia are trying to sever their ties. The mayor of Des Moines, Iowa, writing to his counterpart in Stavropol that it's made the unanimous decision to officially suspend our relationship until the Russian military presence is out of Ukraine and the matter is resolved peacefully. Sister Cities International advises strongly against this, saying that while it might seem like a positive policy protest action, it has the complete opposite effect, closing a vital and oftentimes last channel of communication with vulnerable or isolated populations.
Even if the war ended tomorrow, there are still years now of rebuilding, of healing.
Even with that long road ahead, Wahini is convinced Ukrainians will persevere.
In our national anthem, "Duшу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу," we will put down our souls and our physical bodies to fight for Ukraine, and we will fight to the death. Those words are in our national anthem. And Ukrainians are really standing by and living by that.
Standing by as Los Angeles tries to finalize their sister city status within a matter of weeks.
That was NBC's Maura Barrett reporting. Now, perhaps no one needs help in Ukraine right now as much as its children. But who's helping them endure this war? One nonprofit has been helping Ukraine's orphans since long before this war. Its director joins us next. Later, a suspect in the Brooklyn subway shooting is in custody. We will have more on how the NYPD brought him in. We're glad you're with us for Now Tonight from NBC News. The war in Ukraine has forced millions of children to evacuate. UNICEF says about 5 million kids have fled so far. That's more than 2/3 of Ukraine's children. But what about the ones who can't leave? Who's watching out for them? This invasion has left many children unaccompanied, without parents or guardians. Some were orphans before Russia attacked. According to UNICEF, unaccompanied minors are at a higher risk of violence, exploitation, and trafficking. And for those with disabilities, the challenges are even greater. The nonprofit group Abundance International supports more than a dozen Ukrainian orphanages. During this war, it's been working to feed and care for orphan children throughout the country. Joining us now is Mark Davis, founding director of Abundance International, and he's joined by his wife, Anna Davis, who is also with the organization. Welcome to the program. Good to have you both with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Mark, could I start by just asking you, you're here in the U.S. right now, in Nevada, but you've been in Ukraine for a good portion of this war. Describe some of the things that orphans are dealing with now, maybe things that are different or harder than they were even before the war started.
Correct. We've been dealing with supporting orphanages for 10 years. And I lived there most of the time, and I've been there since day one of the war. And the challenges immediately came to us, both from supplies, from dealing with panicked children, for them having to rush downstairs to bomb shelters every time an air raid siren would go off, 3-4 times a day, and the fear in these kids. And every single orphanage is facing different challenges regarding loss of food. You can see where we've had to resupply food. Some weren't getting medical things they need for special needs kids. These aren't cough syrups. These are very specialized medicines. And the gaps have been everywhere. We keep trying to expand what we're doing to reach more. And at abundanceinternational.org, the donations of all you people have helped make this happen. You can see it right there, what we're doing to keep these kids taken care of who can't leave the country. 85% of these orphans are not able to, or because of physical needs or the willingness or ability to get out of the country, because there's a big legal challenge as well to transport the liability of an orphan child to somebody else on the other side who's going to medically take care of them, legally take care of them, facilities, finances, nursing care. Right. This isn't like putting kids in the back of your station wagon and driving across the border.
It seems like a quite Herculean task, as you describe it, Mark. But Anna, I also kind of wonder about the task inside Ukraine. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like, Anna, for the two of you to help coordinate food, supplies, and logistics with everything that's going on the ground and make sure that everything gets to where it's supposed to be.
I'm born and raised from Mykolaiv, and right now, actually, my family evacuated like 10 hours ago because it's become incredibly dangerous for them. But we have people, volunteers, who are still in different cities, who are willing to help kids, even with danger. They want to stay behind and they want to help them. So while we're here, we contacted them and they're helping us to do this.
You said your family evacuated today, Anna? They just evacuated?
They just evacuated today, like at 9 a.m. my time, because I was begging them to leave. They refused. But about 10 days ago, there was a missile dropped in my neighbor's backyard, which is extremely close to my house. And luckily, it did not explode. And my family is still alive. And past 3 to 4 days, it's been extremely dangerous in Mykolaiv right now. So they decided to finally to leave. And I'm super grateful they're right now in Chernivtsi, which is close to Slovakia, where they don't have too many bombings.
Well, Mark, in light of that, first of all, Anne, I'm glad your family was able to get moving. I hope that they have safe travels as they continue to try to stay safe from all of this. But Mark, in light of all that, I wonder how you deal with taking care of staff on the ground. I understand that you lost contact with an orphanage director in Kherson since this war began.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going back next week because there's so much to do. But here's the real heartbreaking trauma of this. 3 4 of the orphanages we care for now are in the Kherson district, which is now in Russian control. The main one we have loved and cared for over 6 years, did all of the roof, the heating, brought food, loved these kids, held them in our hands. They disappeared, and the last we heard from them is March 8th. And this is 58 children, a third of which are special needs. And all we hear is rumors that the Russians are taking these kids, and we have no other evidence to support anything else, because we're still in contact with the other 3 orphanages in the Kherson district and helping them get supplies even behind enemy lines. So these are 58 kids. We really are just fearfully concerned that they're already in Russia somewhere.
If we could put that map back up again, I know tonight is turning into a bit of a geography lesson, but just to be clear about what we're looking at, you see down there in the bottom, in the south, Mykolaiv and Kherson very close to one another. They kind of sit where the Black Sea runs into the Dniprovska Gulf and then part of the Dnipro River that flows into the Black Sea. So we're talking about generally that same region where, as we mentioned earlier tonight, the Ukrainian government says that it attacked a Russian ship and forced its evacuation. The Russian government says ammunition on board caught fire. The Ukrainians are claiming responsibility for having attacked that ship. Anna, let me ask you in terms of children with disabilities, orphans who have extra special needs on top of dealing with everything in this war. How are you taking care of them, especially since, some of them can evacuate, but if they had to move, depending on what their special needs are, that could make it vastly more difficult.
Yes, and we're really grateful because all the nannies who were taking care of kids before the war, they actually stayed behind, and none of them not leave them, and they stay with them and they provide the need for those kids. And it's been amazing because they have their own families, but they're still staying with those kids. And Mark just was there recently, so he saw how kids were in the basements and in the places where you just save, because my whole family was staying this whole this time in the basement, very, very tiny basement, what we have in our house, 3 big adult people. So these little kids, it's heartbreaking to see, but luckily because of these nannies, they keep in good spirit, and other people, volunteers come in and helping them. And some kids are very hard to move, and you have to have special vehicles for those. And some places are very dangerous to move to, so they have to wait and see when they come and can go to different cities.
Anna, talk to me a bit more about those nannies and the kinds of things that they do to just keep the kids' spirits up, keep them from getting, depressed or scared. Like that's got to be tough work too, just allowing children to have some bit of their childhood in the middle of a war.
Our first orphanage where we started working with it was in my hometown, Mykolaiv, because that's where I grew up, and that's where we started traveling and helping. We decided, we're here, we're grateful. I become an American citizen, so I can help them. A little, just, $100 can help them so far. And usually, like with the original house where we helped, they have like 220 staff who help kids all the time, and they're all still there, and it's just amazing how I cannot describe how happy I am that they did not leave the kids behind to help their own families, and they're traveling with those kids, because everyone have families. We have friends right now who cannot leave that city because they don't want to leave grandma, mom behind. And you don't understand, because many people who are leaving, it's very hard to leave because you have someone behind and you don't know if they're going to survive or not. So I'm right now they moved to a different city and they're safe there. The city who have less bombings and less danger, they keep taking everyone else who want to help, who needs help.
Yeah.
Before I let you two go, I know, Mark, you'd mentioned your website, abundanceinternational.org. Obviously, we leave it to people to do their own research in terms of whether they choose to donate or not. But what are the biggest needs your organization has right now? And are you coordinating at all with the Ukrainian government to meet those needs, or are you a more independent nonprofit organization? Before we go, what are the biggest needs?
Thank you. Absolutely. We are an independent one, but we have, if you go to the homepage at abundanceinternational.org, you see we got the endorsement and thanks from a parliamentary member of the Ukrainian government for the work we're doing. And I'm going back next week to set up a distribution center so we can take more of the humanitarian aid that's coming in and organize and structure our delivery systems independently to each of these orphanages, because I don't see another organization taking care of the ones who are stuck, who are in the country to make sure that they get what they need. And what we're also doing to try to help these orphanages that are behind enemy lines, no one else is doing. And God, thank God for the provision, the prayer of people, for the help of networks like you, getting the word out to let people know that the work we're doing is good work and we're taking care of these kids. And God bless what Anna said about these nannies. These are the front care workers. Although they're personally terrified, their mothering heart keeps issuing calm to these children, saying, it'll be okay, honey, it'll be okay. We love them with our hearts, and this is deep in our DNA. Not only have we been here for a decade already, we'll be here long after this is done and continue to care for these kids, because 85% of these orphans are not going to be getting out of the country. They're still going to be there. And you have to understand the benefits of being a private organization. We can buy expensive medicine and whatever they require, because sometimes what they really need, because sometimes government can only allow a special budget for those kids. And sometimes they need more. They need expensive one, and we can't provide that.
Anna and Mark Davis of Abundance International. Again, the site is abundanceinternational.org. Of course, do your own research, make your own decision as to whether or not you choose to support it. But I appreciate you two coming on to tell the story. Anna, I'm so glad that your family was able to evacuate to someplace safer.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, safe travels to them and to the two of you. Thank you both very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joshua.
We will get to some of today's other top stories in just a moment, including an update on that subway shooting in Brooklyn and the destruction left behind by tornadoes in central Texas. That's all just ahead. Stay close. New Yorkers are riding the subways as usual tonight, though perhaps with a bit less anxiety than yesterday. The NYPD has a suspect in custody after yesterday's shooting in Brooklyn. Officers arrested Frank James in Manhattan's East Village after someone called in a tip. One source tells our New York station WNBC that the tipster might have been Frank James himself. The caller reportedly said, quote, "This is Frank. You guys are looking for me. My phone's about to die," unquote. Today, New York Mayor Eric Adams led the press conference announcing the arrest.
It said to New Yorkers, we want to protect the people of this city and apprehend those who believe they can bring terror to everyday New Yorkers. 33 shots, but less than 30 hours later, we're able to say, we got him.
Prosecutors are charging Frank James with terrorist attacks or other violence against a mass transportation system, and he is due in federal court tomorrow. NBC's Ron Allen joins us from the East Village of Manhattan with more. And Ron, could we just start with the way that he was caught? What more do we know about that, including this report that he sort of turned himself in?
Yeah, that's what we are hearing, is that he called a tip line and told the authorities, told the police where he was at this McDonald's, said something to the effect of, "I believe you're looking for me. Come get me. My phone is dying, so you better hurry up." And police went to this location. He wasn't there, but then a couple of patrol officers looking around in the neighborhood found him shortly thereafter, and he was taken into custody without incident, is the way it was described. There were a number of people in this part of the city who say they saw him or sighted him, so forth. There's a $50,000 reward out for help finding this individual, so there's that as well. But the bottom line is that this went down it was a very simple situation, given the terror that this suspect allegedly unleashed on the city. His arrest was just the very opposite, just very routine.
Yeah, and thankfully so. I know that was a big concern in terms of what it was going to take to catch this suspect, and especially if he continued to commit acts of violence. Clearly, he decided not to. But talk to us about, Ron, about what happens now, about the charges that Frank James faces and the kinds of evidence that's amassed against him.
Well, there's a lot of evidence that police say they have, and that's another striking thing about this case. There are reams and reams of video from surveillance cameras and from individual iPhones that show where he was on the day in question. There's video of him getting onto the subway system. There's video of him from this U-Haul vehicle that he allegedly drove from Philadelphia here and parked, and then got onto the subway from that. There was a key to the vehicle found on the train after the attack. There was a bag with ammunition, with fireworks, with gasoline, with all kinds of things that he left behind, and that's a big question. Why did he do that? Perhaps in the chaos of trying to escape, he had to leave it all behind, because when we finally saw pictures of him, he had a couple of what looked like very big bags, including like a rolling suitcase with all this weaponry and other paraphernalia in it. And we learned today that apparently when the shootings happened, he raced off that train and onto another train across the platform, as did some of the victims, and rode on. It appears that he did not have much weaponry with him because, as I understand it, he was not armed when he was arrested. And where he has been for the past 30 hours or so before the arrest is unclear. And it's something that, it's one of the many questions that authorities have is, where did he go? But even more so, what was he trying to do? What was the plan? What was the plot? Was this all about attacking a train on 36th Street in Brooklyn, or was he going to go on? He was just a few stops from Manhattan, and a lot of iconic potential targets, if you will. So they want to know what was he up to? What was he trying to do as they build this terrorism case against him? Essentially, they're alleging this is an act of domestic terrorism, that he tried to kill, wound, intimidate, maim people aboard this subway, and of course he caused a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety throughout this entire city.
Thank you, Ron. Definitely questions I look forward to getting the answers to, just why he decided to do this. Much appreciated. That's NBC's Ron Allen joining us tonight from the East Village in Manhattan. In Texas, cleanup continues after an EF3 tornado touched down last night. The National Weather Service says its winds reached 165 miles an hour. The tornado moved 13 miles in about a half hour. No reports of any deaths, but at least 23 people were injured. The damage is extensive in the town of Salado, Texas, where we find NBC's Sam Brock.
In the light of day, it's just a path of destruction here in central Texas. I'm standing in the middle of about a 7-mile track from Florence to Salado, where I'm standing right now, where this tornado just blistered right through. Massive trees with their trunks uprooted. Beyond that, homes that had their homes ripped off, many of them just piles of rubble at this point. And if you walk with me, I'll show you what remains right now of the Baptist church. Basically, just bricks. Look at the back of this building, completely disassembled by Mother Nature. We watched as the pastor of this church showed up and saw this for the first time, hugging one of his parishioners. The pastor right now is going through cancer treatment. Still says the resolve of this community, everyone's going to come out here, he says, next Sunday, weather permitting, and have church in this parking lot. That, as the severe weather right now is not over. It has been so far 3.5 rounds of severe weather. This is the 4th consecutive week. Here in central Texas, 23 people injured, 12 were hospitalized, 1 in critical condition. The National Weather Service says that over the last 3.5 weeks, they've received reports of more than 1,400 tornadoes, hail, high winds, and still counting. This stretched all the way into the Midwest and northern parts of the United States, from Iowa and Minnesota to North Dakota and Wyoming. Snow conditions, certainly tractor trailers being blown off of their wheels in the middle of the highway. In Bell County, Sam Brock, NBC News.
The list of state laws targeting transgender children is growing. A new one in Alabama is uniquely restrictive, threatening some doctors who treat trans kids with prison. Last week, Governor Kay Ivey signed the Alabama Vulnerable Child Compassion and Protection Act. It makes prescribing or administering puberty blockers and hormones to minors a felony. Doctors who break this law could face up to 10 years behind bars. It is set to take effect on May 8th. This is one of a wave of state measures targeting LGBTQ people. Last year, 268 proposed bills led to 27 new laws. These are state laws. This year has already seen 325 bills proposed and 8 new laws. NBC Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor joins us now with more. And Yamiche, I want to start with some sound from some state reps in Alabama. This is the Republican Representative Wes Allen, who sponsored the bill, and Democrat Neil Rafferty, who is the only out LGBTQ member of the Alabama state legislature. Listen.
This is a bill not targeting them. We're looking to help them flourish and to help them be happy and to accept their body and their sex. And we just don't want them making decisions at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old that's going to have long-term lasting effects on their body.
It's atrocious. It's absolutely invasive. It is not small government. It is not conservative. This is a total betrayal of everything that every Republican I've ever known on to campaign on, which is family rights and family values. This is completely contrary to that, and they need to be held accountable.
Yamiche, talk about the politics behind this measure that allowed this to become law.
Well, as you noted, Alabama is the state that has gone the farthest when it comes to criminalizing now and making it a felony, providing what people who are opposed to this bill say are medically necessary, gender-affirming medical care. Now, the politics of this really depend on what side of the aisle you're talking to. You talk to Republicans, they're saying that this is really a victory that has been long coming because they've been trying for years to get a bill not only about the medical care for transgender children, but also this bill talks about what bathrooms transgender kids can use. It talks about what kind of conversations can be had in classrooms, and it talks about the fact that parents are going to have to be notified if a child is struggling and questioning their gender identity and really realizing that they're transgender. But Democrats, of course, say that this is really because of the fact that it's an election year and that Republicans are using these bills to target unfairly a population that is already vulnerable, children that are already in need of so much medical care and so much support. And here they say is a bill that's going to be detrimental to their lives.
Yamiche, you spoke to some families and people who are in need of gender-affirming care. What did they tell you?
Josh, these families really told me that this is care that is medically necessary for their children. So many that I talked to say that they were struggling mentally and physically, understanding that they were transgender and wanting to make this change. I will say that families also say that they rely on a team of doctors to make this decision. I talked to one transgender young man, 18 years old. He's going by Kay. He was too fearful, too scared to show his face. But listen to what he had to say about his life and what this bill means.
I'm an adult, and I'm legally responsible for myself, and I can make my own decisions. But according to Alabama, not until you're 19. So, and that puts kids like myself in a lot of danger. I'm old enough for my identity to be politicized at every toss and turn that the world has given me. I think I'm old enough to make my own decisions.
And there you saw an 18-year-old transgender young man saying that I should be able to make the decisions because that transgender man that told me I can join the military, I can do a number of other things. In the eyes of the law, I am an adult, but here is the state of Alabama telling me I don't know what's best for myself.
I do want to note, by the way, that the law as it's written in Alabama would apply to doctors treating minors under the age of 19. So Kay would be covered by that law. Also, since talking about trans issues is new to some folks, we should note that Kay chose to be referred to as he. You call someone what they call themselves. So if that's the pronoun Kay chose, then that is the pronoun that we use. Before I have to let you go, Yamiche, you mentioned the politics of this, which I'm glad you mentioned the midterms, the impact on trans people themselves. There's also the medical debate around this. I want to get to 2 clips from doctors about this kind of care. The first is from a doctor who does care for transgender people, including some minors, and calls this an ethical issue. Watch.
The violation of the ethical tenet to abandon patients is so large and so strong. I know that by ceasing that medical care, I'm directly doing harm. So to choose between that and risking a criminal prosecution is an untenable place to be. I am not sure what I will do in that hypothetical situation, but I know that my heart and soul are leaning towards my patients.
Now, contrast that with the president of the American College of Pediatrics, who says he supports this legislation. Listen.
These clinics, mostly university hospital based, and they are just looking past the fact that the science is not there for them to be doing what they are doing. It's a large experiment on children. It's an uncontrolled experiment. There are no control groups.
Yamiche, before I got to let you go, how, if at all, does the medicine behind this, the science behind all this, factor into what's happening politically?
It's really, really important to understand the medical conversation behind this, because while we're playing, of course, two groups from doctors on both sides, there's a large group of doctors, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, that are saying that this is medically necessary care. They say that criminalizing this sort of gender-affirming medical care is actually dangerous. And then you have a smaller group of conservative doctors, including the one that you just mentioned, that is pushing and saying that transgender identities are social constructs. That's what that doctor told me. He also said that transgender rights and really the movement toward really looking at children and recognizing them as transgender is, quote, a fad. So there's really, I think, offensive language that families coming as offensive being used by the medical professionals on the side of people who are supporting this bill. That being said, the politics of this is that there are the politicians who support these transgender bills that are leaning very heavily on conservative doctors as backup and cover to say this is what a doctor is telling me. But I should tell you, so many doctors that I've talked to and so many families that I've talked to say the vast majority of doctors and the team of doctors that work with transgender young people understand that this is medical care that is needed. This is not a fad. It's not sort of something that is a trend. It is really helping vulnerable children who are often suicidal, who are often facing bullying, make sure that they are living their true selves, which is being transgender, being a boy or a girl in the way that they feel is necessary for their lives.
And I do just want to clarify that doctor you heard from is the president of the American College of Pediatricians. That is different from the American Academy of Pediatrics, which does support care for transgender youth, just to clarify. Thank you, Yamiche. That's NBC Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor reporting for us tonight. Much appreciated. Millions of travelers in the U.S. will have to keep their masks on for a few more weeks, at least. We will explain the updated CDC guidance when we come back. So after 2 years of this pandemic, when will travel get back to something like normal? In the U.S., it might take a little longer. Today, the CDC announced it is extending its mask mandate for planes, trains, and buses. It was set to expire on Monday. Now it will end on May 3rd. Today on MSNBC, Dr. Anthony Fauci said it's a prudent move to track COVID now that a new variant is spreading.
We really want to see what the pattern is here in the United States. I think making a decision for April 18th, I would agree that we really do need more time. It isn't like things are static. Things are moving. We're seeing an increase throughout the country.
Major airlines say they are not thrilled with this extension. The trade group Airlines for America represents 10 major carriers. A letter from its CEO to the Biden administration calls for ending both the federal mask mandate and pre-departure testing requirements for international travel. The CEO writes, quote, "Neither restriction is currently supported by data and science in today's public health environment," unquote. Let's dig into that with NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. And Dr. Patel, I wonder what you make of this extension and what difference 2 weeks might make in terms of understanding what's going on.
Joshua, on the surface, 2 weeks doesn't seem like a lot. I can tell you what my sense is that they're trying to figure out how to go from, just as you point out, 2 years of masking and obviously these additional test requirements, and then kind of literally yanking out the rug right when we see about a 25% increase in 7-day averages over the United States. We're not anywhere near the last surge, but with the numbers rising around much of the United States, I think that a 2-week extension period, if you will. It's like getting an extension on your homework. You still have to turn it in. So we shall see what comes early May. And I wonder if they'll try to modify it, Joshua, to try to appease kind of people who are still concerned because they can't get vaccinated, people who are nervous because they have to start traveling for work now and don't have a lot of options.
Yeah, we asked folks how this might affect them and got some different responses. An unrelated thing tweeted, next vacation, in terms of how it would affect that vacation. I have a 2-year-old child in my house and live in Orlando. I try not to leave the house and don't trust anywhere for vacations yet. My next vacation will be like the last 4 vacations, spent at home, hiding from a world that acts like we're not in a pandemic. And Kim tweeted, I am flying on Saturday for a family issue, and I am thankful for this extension. Dr. Patel, I think we need to be kind of real here. A lot of the problem with the mask mandates has not really had anything to do with the science, but the sociology. People have been behaving abominably in the airports. I mean, we just heard not too long ago that the number of fines and infractions for American travelers is through the roof and continues to break records. So I just want to be clear for people who are incensed over the idea of having to continue to wear a mask. I would just like to be clear about how much of this is the science, regardless of whether or not people want to wear it, that there's actually a good reason that we all have to.
Yeah, that's right, Joshua. And look, let's look at the science. So in terms of actually the airplane itself, once it's up and the engines are running, the circulation in an airplane, Joshua, is almost rivaling that within my hospital or clinic. I mean, they're moving air so many times per hour that it's actually quite safe. And if you'll recall, some of the times when we have seen airplane-borne transmission, people giving it to each other in airplanes, is when there are no masks. And so this is an interesting conundrum. Airplanes are safe, just what I said, but it's likely that the time when you're not the safest on the airplanes, when you're on that tarmac, engines haven't started, air is not moving, and you're just sitting there. And then also at those, I'm sure you've seen it when I've been at the airport, we're congested at the gate. We're just all crushed upon each other to get on and to get off the plane. Those are probably the most vulnerable periods. And Joshua, those would, from a scientific standpoint, be your highest points of contact that make you vulnerable. But sitting on the plane, once it's up and running, not a lot of science that you need to worry as much. Having said that, I've got young children. I'm going to probably continue to wear a mask because, Joshua, first time in 2 years that I've been able to avoid getting a cold or a flu, and I think it has to do with masking. So you're correct. The science is there. But as you point out, sociology, the emotional behavior of people just being told they have to do something has started to kind of overwhelm, I think, the science. And that's why I think in 2 weeks, we're going to have to see not just, again, kind of the masks pulled out, but some accommodation. People who can say, yes, it's okay to wear masks. Or at the gate area, we encourage you to wear masks. Look for language like that. I think that might be coming.
And again, that's for planes, trains, and buses until May 3rd. And I hear you in terms of people just being bunched in at the airport. If people would just board with their boarding group, we won't talk about that. That's a whole other thing. Before I have to let you go, Dr. Fauci also talked about the antiviral drug from Pfizer. I want to play part of what he said, and then I got a question for you. Watch.
There isn't a full appreciation of who should get it, when they should get it, and where you wind up getting it. What we really have got to do is we've got to get the practicing physicians to realize that there is plenty of drug around. It is being underutilized, and it works very well. We know that if given within the first 3 to 5 days, it can diminish the likelihood of hospitalization by as much as 89 to 90%.
Real briefly, Dr. Patel, before we got to move on, how might antiviral drugs factor into mask mandates being a thing of the past?
Huge, especially if you can know that when you get tested at home and you have a rapid, you can call someone like me and I can get you a prescription at your local pharmacy and you can start taking it in 5 days. It does have some side effects. There's some precautions, but as Dr. Fauci mentioned, we're underutilizing it and it can help reduce any of the spread or the harmful effects of this virus. So it could be a game changer. We just need to get more people aware and asking for it.
Dr. Kavita Patel, I appreciate you letting me complain about people boarding ahead of their boarding group and giving us some information about where we stand with these restrictions. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's a special thing for a family to bond with the strangers who welcomed them into their home. We'll introduce you to a group that has helped more than 37,000 families and counting. our special series, Inspiring America, before we go.
NBC News, streaming free now.
Our world is facing some complex issues. Chuck Todd breaks them down. Every Thursday, a deep dive into a new subject.
Instead of covering a lot of topics in one show, we're going to focus on one and take a deeper look at how it impacts America.
Exploring and explaining the critical stories that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. Thursdays at 10:30 p.m. Streaming on NBC News Now and on demand next day on Peacock.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand, so we've created a newscast just for them. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
These days, it feels like the news never stops. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. It can be hard to keep up, so let's get started together.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
NBC News, streaming free now.
Hold on to your seats.
The Thing About Pam is the chart-topping podcast series from Dateline and Keith Morrison.
A strange story and a career of strange stories.
All episodes are available now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
NBC News, streaming free now.
It's hard enough enduring a serious illness, especially if the right medical treatment is not available where you are. That is where the Boston nonprofit Hospitality Homes comes in. From our special series, Inspiring America, NBC's Kristen Dahlgren has the story.
When we first met baby Oliver Huffman in 2016, severe intestinal problems led to dozens of surgeries.
I think it still can bring tears to my eyes.
His parents were living with strangers to be near his care. Pam and Harvey Lodish opened their home to the Huffmans through Hospitality Homes, which matches patients' families with volunteer hosts to save the cost of a hotel. Since the program started, they've helped more than 37,000 families.
I'm so thankful that they would invest in our family. I mean, they didn't know us.
But as Oliver improved and grew,
he's in kindergarten and doing great.
So did their relationship with the Lodishes.
The relationship that started as a stranger welcoming us into their house has now developed into something so beautiful.
Oliver calls them Grandma and Grandpa.
We went there for Thanksgiving.
He doesn't remember them ever being strangers, but he has heard about what they did.
Been sharing my lamp.
And so to give back, Oliver now has a GoFundMe.
Can you do it too?
The Huffmans moved to Boston permanently, and this month they'll cheer on Oliver's aunt as she runs the Boston Marathon for Hospitality Homes.
How much do you think overall you guys are going to raise?
Our goal was 10,000, but we got over that.
Right on.
A little boy reaching big goals thanks to family, old and new. Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News, Boston.
One last thing before we go. If you know someone who's struggling with their income taxes, have them send us their questions. We'll get some answers tomorrow night from the Washington Post's Michelle Singletary. We are at NBC Now tonight on social media. Leave us a voicemail, 888-575-2NBC, or email us nowtonight@nbcnews.com. Look forward to getting some answers tomorrow, but until we meet again, I'm Joshua Johnson. Thank you for making time for us. Good night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.